UAE.
I'm going to assume that they've got, other, like maybe there's a soccer team down there using it or something.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe they can use it as a Tesla supercharger site.
Oh, that would be nice.
Maybe so. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think the best part of that Chargers game was they did one of those like timeout competitions, and the guy like won, and they're like, "What do you say?" And he's like, "Go San Diego." Oops, they're not there anymore, sir. You're in Los Angeles.
Sort of in Los Angeles.
I mean, you're in Carson. Definitely not in San Diego.
You're Los Angeles adjacent.
New York has 2 NFL teams, and I don't think either one actually play in the city, or do they?
The Jets play in New Jersey.
Yeah,
so it's actually a different state, even though it's quite close.
Yeah. But the Giants,
the Giants play. Where do they play?
Oh, they share a stadium.
They both play in New Jersey?
Yeah, I think they. If I remember correctly, they both play in the same stadium.
So even more ridiculous.
The old San Diego, and that's going to happen with the Chargers and the Rams. They're both playing in the same stadium too, in Inglewood. Neither one of them will be in LA either. San Diego County Credit Union Stadium is used by San Diego State.
Oh, okay.
Aztecs. Go Aztecs.
But that's weird. It's nowhere near the campus.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever. It's near a private airspace, though. That much I do know.
Mm-hmm.
Invaluable. That was the word I was looking for. Sorry, I'm just trying to construct a really great tweet.
And the Holiday Bowl happens there.
Yeah, it's the MetLife Stadium. It's in Jersey, and both the Jets and the Giants use it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why I only had it in my head that the Jets did that, because I was like, wow, those are New Jersey people. They both play at that stadium.
The Giants played in Jersey first, I think. That may be why. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm just speaking out of my ass, though. I don't really know.
I have no idea. I went to a Mets game at the old Mets Stadium way back in the day. Actually, I went to the old Yankee Stadium too as well. Yeah, Shea Stadium and then the old Yankee Stadium. So fun. Both of them were so fun. I like an old. All right.
I like me an old stadium, like Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
All right. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
I'm ready.
We go.
A Nicola show keeps you in the know. If you'd like to find out more, please go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support and find out how to keep us on the air. Thank you.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, March 28th, 2018 from DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And
Mr. Chris Ashley, where are you coming from?
Your boys hanging out over in the DC area from your SMR podcast. What up, people? I'm back.
Good to have you back, man.
Thank you. So happy. I saw the email. I was like, something to do.
They love me. I'm back.
I'm coming home.
That email, of course, came from our producer, Roger Chang. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Again.
Good to hear. Yeah. We are going to talk a little bit about cloud services. Are they going to last? I don't know. We're going to find out. But let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Sources tell Bloomberg Facebook will not unveil the Facebook speaker, as it's rumored to be called, at the FA Developer Conference, which starts on May 1st, instead choosing to focus on its commitment to improving data privacy practices. Rumors that Facebook would announce connected speakers with a digital assistant and video chat capabilities at F8 have been said to be replaced by the need to explain new, more restrictive rules around what kinds of information app makers can collect on their users via Facebook service.
Does that mean the engineers who are putting together a speaker will be explaining the privacy rules? Because interesting.
Speaker data, it would be a tough sell.
That's the first headline you've had in a long time that, I've been here, 4 or 5 times. That made me laugh out loud when I saw that. So, of course you're not talking about more things to steal people's privacy.
The Windows subsystem for Linux now includes Ubuntu, SUSE, Debian, and Kali. And Microsoft now has an open source tool called WSL Distro Launcher on GitHub that'll let you build your own Linux package. Tool lets distros create packages for distribution. You have to be the owner or the organization behind the distro to do it, though. You can't make Red Hat a distro. Red Hat has to do it. But then once you do it, you can put it in the Windows Store. And it also lets developers sideload distros on their development systems. So you could sideload Red Hat on your development system using this if you want.
Google announced the addition of new support for 39 languages in Google Maps. Among the languages are Finnish, Vietnamese, Swedish, Afrikaans, Zulu, and Turkish. About 1.25 billion people speak the languages added. So, pretty good user base.
Languages were not on there. All right, let's talk. We got a little more about Facebook. The news just keeps on coming. Playboy's chief creative officer announced that the publication is the latest high-profile account holder to remove its Facebook presence. As you know, lots of people making a big deal when they do this. Elon Musk, for instance. However, the Next Web notes that Facebook's monthly active user data shows increases of more than 4% since January in the US and the UK. Now, this jump could be due to people investigating their privacy settings. That seems likely. App Annie, however, reports there was only a brief drop in Facebook downloads last week that has now returned to normal levels. Overall, data does not really indicate a significant number of users deleting their Facebook accounts. Are any of us shocked?
I'm not shocked. It seems like some of these businesses are looking more to make a splash off of, I deleted my Facebook than anything else. I don't even get why they're deleting it. It's not like they're sharing personal information. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
the last time, Chris, you were on was in, I think, the end of January, and all Tom and Roger and I, and any guest we've had talks about Facebook consistently every day since then, because that's the way it goes. But yeah, what do you make of this? I don't know, movement, if you want to call it that, of people being like, Facebook's evil, get away from Facebook.
I think what it is more the media being pissed off with Facebook. I think that this is their opportunity to hit back at something that has been helping to pull viewers and eyeballs away from the and when I say media, I mean the old media, TV. Facebook has been pulling people away and then monetizing the heck out of it, and then offered for other folks to advertise, and then kind of changed the rules on them as well back in the day to make it a little bit harder. So they're not making as much money as they once were, but they still have the eyeballs. So I think that a lot of this has to do more with a little get back at Facebook than anything else, because the reality is, at least from as far as I see it, the issue is them allowing people to take the data, right? It's not the fact that they've been collecting this data for a long time and they're going to continue to collect the same data, but the fact that somebody was able to access additional data that they weren't supposed to be able to. I think that's the biggest problem.
Well, somebody handed over data. Somebody handed over data they had the right to, but they didn't have the right to hand it over, and that's the long and the short of it.
Well, on that note, following up on Mark Zuckerberg's post last week, the company announced changes meant to simplify access to its privacy settings. So primary controls are now on one page instead of sort of spread out across 20, as they've been in the past. It's now a lot more clear what info is shared with which apps. Privacy shortcuts will be added to the menu for things like two-factor auth, data deletion, and the like. Some of these changes are required to meet the EU's GDPR requirements. Those are new. We've talked about them in the past here on the show. Facebook, though, is not changing what data it collects or how it uses it.
Yeah,
it's just reorganizing everything.
It goes right to Chris's point. They're not changing what they know about you or what they collect. They are trying to finally make it not require a how-to video to figure out how to change your privacy settings, though.
Yeah.
And I'll just say shout out to the EU, because they always create these rules that make personal data a lot more important to businesses, and they're always seem to be the ones leading the way, forcing companies to protect user data.
Yeah, I think it is. This is more controversial to me than the whole Cambridge Analytica thing. That was a sleazy company convincing a professor to do something. Maybe he was duped, maybe he wasn't. the fact that Facebook makes it so hard for you to know what's shared is more of an issue. And this is way too late. I'm glad they're doing it, but they should have made it easy for you to figure out this stuff a long time ago. And I think it's very telling that it took this long for them to fix the UI on this. 20 pages. That was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Knowing that The Verge's Vlad Savov is a critic of the notch in mobile phones, Essential Phone was one of the first. And of course, the iPhone 10 is the most famous. OnePlus reached out to explain to Vlad at The Verge why the next OnePlus phone will have a notch. Because apparently OnePlus likes a challenge. Carl Pei from OnePlus told Savov, OnePlus and most phone makers see notches as adding screen real estate, not taking it away. The quote is, what you are essentially doing is moving the entire notification bar up, giving users more content on their screen. Now, Vlad has a great write-up of all of the explanations that follow on that and why OnePlus is doing it better than other phone makers and essentially making it, so that your video doesn't end up under the notch and this and that and some other things that they're doing. But overall, do you buy that, Chris? Is this just adding screen real estate, or is it adding ugly, or is it something else?
I'll be honest, that notch took some getting used to. I'm not going to front. When I've got the latest iPhone, I was like, why is this thing cut off out of there? But with that said, I have gotten used to it, so it doesn't bother me nearly as much. But the real thing going on here is, Vlad, you are a beast because you got companies checking with you on why they should be building stuff. Awesome for you, dude. Yeah,
props to Vlad for that. Sarah, you bothered by the notch?
Not at all. I also rock a very, very cracked phone screen and have for some time, and now I wear it as a badge of pride. So I just don't care about things like this. However, I remember the first time I saw the Essential Phone, you brought it over to my house. It was new at the time, and it was like, oh, okay. There's a little, okay. I don't know. I don't. Is it because it doesn't feel good physically? Like, what is the notch thing that people are so sort of like, well, is there a notch or is there not? That's how I know if it's a really great phone.
Yeah, no, there's a few things. People are mad because it looks weird, right? Anything that looks different. People are mad that Android phones are doing it now because they feel like they're just doing it because the iPhone did it, and that's not a good enough reason. And I think the legitimate ones are the people who are like, on the iPhone, sometimes the video goes under there, and that just bothers me. It distracts me.
Yeah, because it's not everything that falls underneath it, right? It's just sometimes, and then it kind of catches you off guard in the beginning. But
I'm totally on board with the idea that this is just extra screen real estate, unless the notch gets in my way, and it really doesn't get in my way very often on either phone.
Moving on, SoftBank and Saudi Arabia are planning the world's biggest solar farm. When I say big, I mean big. $200 billion solar power installation would produce 200 gigawatts of energy. That is 1/3 of the worldwide supply last year, just to put that into perspective. It's a lot of energy. Saudi Arabia generated 77 gigawatts in 2016, almost entirely from natural gas and oil.
Yeah, 1/3 of the worldwide solar supply last year, and yet also bigger than all of the energy Saudi Arabia made last year. Like this is what Saudi Arabia does, though. I don't mean to speak ill of the country, but they often present plans and get them in the press, and then it remains to be seen if the plans get followed through on. I hope this does, because it would be so interesting to see the world's center of oil production become the center of solar production.
Something I've always
makes sense on paper anyway, right? Desert country, lots of sun. I mean, you can supposedly power 1/3 of the world's entire supply.
It's awesome
from this very small country. When you think of it on a global scale, like, that's amazing. I hope they do it.
I just never understood why all these companies that have the monopoly on gas and oil never said, you know what, let's just be the monopoly on solar power. It just doesn't make we would rather just block it. So I love the fact that it's big news and it's something to boast about to build such a solar farm like that. So I'd love to see that here.
I mean, Saudi Arabia doing what the music industry didn't, right? Saying, our natural advantage may be drying up soon. Let's figure out a solution to that before it happens.
What else we got? Got sun. Yeah. Solar
Mashable,
farm.
Mashable notes the latest Snapchat beta has a tab called Connected Apps in its setting page. Now, this is a beta, so the settings page really doesn't do anything right now. It just says there's nothing there. It actually gives you kind of an error message. And Snapchat only has one connected app, Snap's own Bitmoji. Snap owns Bitmoji. There's also an integration with Shazam that you could sort of consider a connected app, but this seems to be an indication that Snap is going to start creating some sort of app ecosystem. Now, a lot of people immediately want to point to like, that's what got Facebook in trouble. But also lots of ecosystems out there have app connections to them without getting into the same trouble as Facebook does. It's all in the matter of the implementation, right?
Yeah, but do we need another app ecosystem?
It's not if we need it, Chris. It's if it makes us look really cute and it helps us post on social media.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, how else would I get the Bitmoji version of me dancing around below me dancing in a Snapchat?
I don't even have Snapchat installed, nor do I use it. I don't even understand it, really.
Well, there you go. That's why you don't get it.
I have it installed. I use it maybe once a month. So something like this, I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe there would be an incentive to like get me back into it more with more tools that are, go beyond sort of like, you're a dog, post that photo and send it to your friends. I don't know. I feel like a lot of things at Snapchat are a little up in the air these days.
It does feel historic, just a historic perspective here. It does feel interesting that back when apps were first added to Facebook, or even in Google's system, but I think even before Google Plus, they had this little like integrated app ecosystem for Google services. It was a big deal, right? Twitter, I think, was one of the first ones we saw do this, and everyone's like, "Wow, that's so cool! They're so open and letting people interact with their platform. This is the future." And now Snap does it, and it's like yawn or controversial,
Oh my God.
Well, I also think that Snapchat suffers from people thinking like, oh, it's this app, for sexting. And then it was like, well, no, it's not just about that, but it's like an app for like dumb filters, or, to like talk a one-on-one with people where you want the conversation to go away later. It's like, there's not a lot of there. And I think that depending on what, I don't know, the company might integrate with could make it more robust. But for people like me, it's like, I don't know, man. I'm pretty full on my social media accounts at this point. I don't know what you can do to kind of get me to, be more into it.
My social runneth over.
Folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines. You can get it on the Amazon Echo, the Google Home, the Anchor app, and of course, dailytechheadlines.com. So Morgan Stanley analyst Keith Weiss has a note out where he says Microsoft's public cloud adoption will grow 44% to 44% of workloads in the next 3 years. It's currently at about 21%. This goes along with some valuation estimates that Microsoft's going to leapfrog back into the top 3, right up there next to Amazon. And of course, cloud adoption is what Satya Nadella has bet on. What do you think of this, not just from Microsoft's perspective, Chris, but the idea that software as a service is sticking around? Do you think that is an arrow that only goes up, or are we going to swing back at some point?
It's something I've been contemplating for quite some time, because professionally I have to work around SaaS and even in the process of building out SaaS offerings. And so I remember when we were first being told that, hey, you really need to start taking this stuff more seriously. And, we're talking to customers and they're like, no, not putting anything up there. And I would say it was like overnight. We're like, the customers are coming to us now. It's like, what are you guys doing in the SaaS space? And so it really ramped up from customers that I've talked to pretty quickly. So when I saw how fast it ramped up, and the idea behind it is we're saving money and we don't have to order all these servers and systems, and we can offload the work somewhere else, it that initial thought makes sense, even though some people are finding they're not saving any money at all. So my natural thought process was, man, is this coming back inside at some point? But the money that Microsoft is putting behind it, the incentives they're giving companies to move, helping some companies move to free to get in Azure and get into Office 365, and it's probably going to be some time before we see any type of shift the other direction. In fact, you'll see more right now. A lot of companies running hybrid solutions where they'll offload, like for example, if you have a company that has users that are in a warehouse, they don't need accounts, they don't log on to computers, but they have accounts in their Active Directory. So what a lot of companies are doing is like, why do we need extra servers for those accounts? We'll just put those up in Azure AD, and then we'll just keep the regular accounts on our regular servers replicating. So that's one of the use cases that that I've seen, that I could see why they would want to do that. So but if I had to just bet everything I had, at some point it's probably going to come back.
Well, we were talking about this in the analyst Slack today, and a few different people pointed out similar situations that they've been in where a company says, okay, we're moving into the cloud, and makes a big deal out of it, maybe even puts out press releases, one person says, about how this is going to allow them to be on the cutting edge and save money, and yet behind the scenes saying, please don't change anything. In other words, like, we actually like it working exactly the way it's working right now, but we need to make it move to the cloud for reasons, but we don't want it to change. That indicates to me that some people are moving to software as a service or SaaS because it looks good, not because they need to. And that's the kind of thing that might eventually swing people back to doing in-house stuff.
Yeah. Plus, you have companies that when they have to report money. So on the other side of this, not just the companies using SaaS, but companies that are building SaaS solutions, you really have to take into account that you're changing your model of how you make money. Because when you sell software, you make that money up front. But when you sell a SaaS solution, that money's over time. And so, is your company prepared to do that? Are they prepared to kind of hold off for a year or two on that bottom line? Maybe they want to go public, so they need to keep those numbers up and keep. So, there's a lot of challenges there just from the back end of this stuff as well. So, and if companies aren't all willing to take that hit at some point, in the short term to make the long-term gains, then, they'll be also then pushing folks back to go on premise as well. So, but for now, I mean, I don't see anything happening anytime soon, but I just, it is an interesting contemplation as to how long this one is going to run.
If you sort of step back and look at it from the 1,000-foot view, or 30,000, however high you need to get to be able to look at it really wide, there's always at one end the smallest of businesses who just can't. Maybe they can't even afford their own IT person. So software as a service is going to be real appealing to them,
sure,
whether it's through Intuit or Google or AWS or whatever, for all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there's a article on nextgov.com this week about subscription-based IT, where you just hire an IT service instead of an IT person. Now, on the other end, the largest companies are always going to build their own, right? Amazon built their own and sells it to other people. Microsoft runs their own. They don't buy it from someone else. So there's that end of it. But even Apple sometimes uses AWS, right? Sometimes uses other services. So to me, it's all about where that line shifts as to where you are absolutely going to be in-house and where you're not. And that's that line seems to be moving to the extreme left. And I feel like it's got to move back at some point.
Now, the thing is, when it moves, if it moves back, is in what form will it move back, right? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the new features coming out in the next Windows Server version is kind of the ability to do a company to do a cloud of their own, and then connect it back with Azure. So I believe that's right. So if that's the case, then it's still a kind of a interesting way for it to come back, where it still runs as a cloud. It's just a private cloud by the company. You still, that's something that would satisfy a lot of the regulations in the EU, especially Germany. They're really strict onto what type of data can go up into a cloud. China as well. Some countries say, you can put our data in the cloud, but it can't leave our country. So how do you
China's
do
the strictest on that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, so those type of things would be interesting as well. But, for now, like I said, the ramp up is pretty amazing when you look at it, and the fact that a lot of people are starting to hear the rumbles of writing Microsoft off as the Windows is gone away and Xbox is nothing, and Office is still hanging in there, server, but then it's just like boom, we're doing everything in the cloud, and just like that, we're scratching the surface of being $1 trillion company.
Yeah. And one of the, I know some people out there are like, I'm not in enterprise, this doesn't affect me, but a lot of times where goes enterprise is where you will go as a consumer next.
Oh, yeah.
And right now it's all cloud. If you're a person that's been hoping to bring data back into your own house, you can still do that. Obviously, there's lots of ways to do it, but there's not as many easy ways. All the effort is in developing cloud systems. I'll be interested to see if we ever see that swing back, if we start to get consumer devices that, like you say, like a private cloud or a hybrid cloud that you can run in your house, if that ever becomes popular. I know there's a few things that do that out there. They're just not widely known.
Yeah. And the fact that at the very least, Office, as soon as they came out with Office 365, I signed up for it because I liked the idea of being able to pay a subscription and just always having the latest version of Office. So I think there may be always a place for certain pieces of software. And in fact, the fact that you got 5 accounts, I got two nieces and a nephew in college that use, some of my subscriptions for Office. And so those type of things do make sense and probably will continue. But so as like you said, a lot of enterprise stuff will make it to the home just by the natural flow.
I apologize for not using the buzzword edge when we were talking about hybrid and partial on-premise. We should have been talking about edge computing. That's the buzzword. So there you go. If you want to impress your friends, say you're not living in the cloud.
Also the name of a Microsoft browser.
Right. And a member of U2.
Oh, right. That other edge.
Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And our Facebook group is still pumping along, facebook.com/group/dailytechnewsshow. We've got stuff in the mailbag, Sarah.
Yeah, we really do. Okay, so the first one comes from Al, who said, tell the truth. When you were talking about the story involving the new material that can extract moisture from desert air, this was 3 days ago, weren't you thinking of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru moisture farming on Tatooine? I was not.
I was thinking Dune. I was thinking Fremen and Muad'Dib. But now I feel silly that I didn't also think of Tatooine. That's obvious.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, kids.
Rich Straffolino from lovely Cleveland says, I think Apple really loses out to Chrome OS in education when it comes to handling user accounts. The issue that iOS is inherently a single user device. This makes it difficult to share devices for schools with small budgets, as you lose out on a lot of personalized content. Meanwhile, Chrome OS not only supports multiple users, but that experience is easily transferred to any other machine without having to do an extensive backup and recovery process. Apple's announcements do add some essential fleet management to the platform, which is key for success in education or in an enterprise deployment. But the lack of user accounts seems like a major hurdle unless these are exclusively personal devices. And we had a lot of people write in on one side or the other of this issue, but you can't debate that Chrome OS does have more flexibility for the different situations.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And the fact that the OS runs in a browser is the huge part of it, right? Because you can use it on a Google device or you can use it on any device, which is what makes it so portable. My daughter uses it for schoolwork today. And, so Apple would have to build a platform that could support that containerization, and then they would be able to compete. But, Google's done a pretty good job of really getting a foothold out there.
Got another email from Russell, who shed a little light on the fact that Apple chose its conference yesterday at a high school, not for no reason. Russell says, I went to Lane Tech in Chicago, The school has a long history of being one of the top technical, science, and match high schools in Chicago. Match, I think he means math. It started out as more of a trade school early on with a lot of robust shop and drafting courses preparing students to enter the skilled workforce. Even toasted a full tour color printing operation when I was there. It has evolved to focus more on math and science and college prep, but still remains a lot of the technical roots to be sure, which is great. I mean, obviously that's why Apple chose it, but I was not familiar, but I like the idea that it's, named after me.
Of course.
Yeah.
I want to say Ismet and Tim on my freshman high school dorm floor at the University of Illinois both went to Lane Tech. I know they were both in computer science, but and they were both went to Chicago vocational school, or not vocational school, but like a high school like this. And I think it was Lane.
Very cool.
And I think you were Lane.
Schools. Well, thank you to everybody who wrote in. Got a lot of great emails in the last 24 hours. So thank you. And also thank you to Chris Ashley for being with us again. Chris, tell everybody where they can follow everything you do.
Oh, man, you can always find me on the SMR podcast, smrpodcast.com. Three Bamas just recording and having a good time talking tech and other stuff in life. But you can also just catch me on Twitter at Big Chris Ashley.
Yeah. Let me vouch for the SMR podcast. It is an enjoyable time. They are going to talk about politics that will make you angry. They are going to talk about crazy sports and video games, and it's fun to listen to. And then they're going to dive into enterprise tech out of nowhere, and you're going to be impressed. So enjoy it. It's a good show.
It's a lot of fun. And we
also, what's crazy about sports, Tom?
Well, there's this you guys were talking about dunking and lowering yourself down into the diagnostic position off of
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Point.
Yeah, on the last episode. So I'm just saying, you got to check them out. smrpodcast.com. Also, thanks to our patrons that make this show possible at dailytechnewsshow.com/support. We just need 7 more folks to support the show and hit our monthly goal of 1 patron more than last month. It could be you. Thanks to everybody who's piled in. We've had about from yesterday. We got about half of what we need. We just need a half more. So 7 more folks at $1 a month. That's all it takes. Patreon.com/DTNS.
Excellent. If you want to get a hold of us, well, it's very easy. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com is the easiest way to do so. You have other options, but we always read our email. We're also live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
We'll be back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good show, you guys.
Good show.
It always goes by so fast.
I know, right? It just flies.
Chris, you're so great.
Well, thank you.
It's always nice to have you on the show.
It's easy to hang out when you enjoy and having a conversation. Yeah,
likewise.
Isn't that the case?
Doesn't that just make
isn't that why we're all doing this?
Yeah. Tom.
Yeah.
You almost made me cry yesterday, man.
Why?
Thank you for your support of the show.
Oh, sure. It was overdue.
I was like, what's going on here? What is this wet spot under my eyeballs?
Oh,
what's going on?
What are these?
So much love.
Might be an,
Thank you.
be an infection. You can,
I hope so. I don't know if I'm getting
No, man.
emotions.
I supported you way too late. I should have been supporting you. It was one of those things where I finally, at the end of the podcast, when you say support us on Patreon, I was like, oh, right. I really need to do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. You bet. Just,
I mean, you want to cry now?
No, my wife's upstairs and she'll keep listening.
Right.
maybe we could have a special once a month crying circle.
All right. We can, just
Sure, yeah. Like instead of like a peyote thing, we just sort of cry about thank you for supporting my people.
I would have gone drum circle, but peyote works. Yeah.
Ayahuasca, yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't really know the difference.
But you'll have to talk like Matthew McConaughey when you do it and you cry.
All right.
Right. Yeah. Like what else did he say?
Bacon double cheeseburger.
Oh God, don't even.
Yeah, that's not one of my repertoire.
Still okay, so Chris,
Yo,
there's a maybe a regional radio commercial.
Right. Now this will be interesting.
okay.
Because he wouldn't necessarily have a Carl's Jr. in Washington, D.C. surrounding area.
Yeah, you probably have Hardee's, right?
So, depending on where you are, yeah.
Or,
Hardee's
or
or Carl's
the
Jr.
DMV,
Okay.
as
All
I
right,
understand it's called now, the DMV.
You got it.
Mhm.
Where did you get that from?
Delmarva.
I got friends in D.C.
Okay, let's go. You got it right. Okay, DMV, 100%.
Anyway, Carl's Jr., yes or no? Do you have them?
They are not in my immediate area, but they're not far from me either.
Are they within 10 miles of you?
10 miles.
And you have both Carl's Jr. and Hardee's, you're saying?
Depending on what part of what state you're in.
Depends on where you are. So,
Okay. All right.
So let me give you a brief to kind of answer your question. So there's not a Carl's Jr. that's that close that I can think of. But we do have what's called Roy Rogers. Okay.
Oh, I remember those.
So
I've
Roy
heard
Rogers
of this.
at one point was owned by Hardee's. So for all intents and purposes, they were the same restaurant.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I used to work for Roy Rogers and
All right.
thus Hardee's. And then so Carl's Jr. never really came to this area. So what happened was McDonald's came in and bought Roy Rogers out from Hardee's. And then, but some of the Roy Rogers in the area were privately owned. So they were franchises. They since have expanded. So now there's Roy Rogers everywhere again.
Oh, weird.
For the most part. And, you know, the McDonald's are here too. But Carl's Jr. is not necessarily here. But if I'm going up to Pennsylvania, or, you know, if I've driven to Ohio, right on the way, there's a Carl's Jr. You know, so it's about, 30 minutes from here. So Carl's Jr. is not out here, but Roy Rogers is. And and also there's a Hardee's in the Delmarva area as well that I can think of. There's still one that they kept that I think Marriott kept because it was like right on the interstate, and it just makes a ton of money. So I don't know if Marriott ever actually sold it, because originally it was Marriott owned Roy Rogers, and they sold the Roy Rogers off to Hardee's.
Now, I know I've said this story before, but Hardee's bought Burger Chef like back in the early 80s. And there was a place on Interstate 70 in Southern Illinois where there was a Burger Chef next to a Hardee's.
Right.
And then when Hardee's bought Burger Chef, they followed the corporate manual and changed all the signage to Hardee's. So there was a Hardee's next to a Hardee's.
That absolutely happened. I worked at Roy Rogers. We're literally a 5-minute walk down the street. There was another Hardee's right on the corner. So that was actually, I worked at 2 different locations where that happened. Like one, you could actually see the other Hardee's. Like if you went out the back window, you could see the other Hardee's. That's how close it was.
That means that restaurant must have been drinking in customers constantly, because I mean, that would be enough business to have 2 stores.
They really were, because the one that I worked at, which was down the hill, had the high school which would come in for lunch. And then the other one had the apartment complex right directly behind it. So they both had different customer base, but the other one was smaller, so they would close it a little bit earlier. And but yeah, they because Roy Rogers and Hardee's, they sold both chicken and burgers, right? So they attracted 2 different types of customers.
Now all of this relates to Matthew McConaughey somehow.
Cloudy with the chance of SaaS.
Cloudy with the chance of SaaS. I like it.
That one.
Done.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
But continue with the double Western bacon cheeseburger.
No. Never want to hear that song again.
So basically, there's a Matthew McConaughey ad that's both on radio but also TV, where it's just him saying, "Making my
And you sort of like imagine him naked bongoing, and you're like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this. I just want a burger.
It's just constant. Like, you can't escape. You turn on the radio here, turn on TV. It's going to be on within the hour. And you can't get away from it. Sarah is sick to death of it and hopes it dies a famed broily death, But she was wondering,
Right.
is that an ad campaign that exists in your area?
No. I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to see where the closest Carl Jr. is to me.
I did not. This ad. First of all, I don't hear it that often because I don't listen to much radio.
Yeah.
But it did not bother me as much until you just said you picture him naked bongoing. And it's going to bother me a lot.
See? I'm sorry.
Oh, one side
Sorry,
note:
and I'm not sorry.
Matthew McConaughey, huge Redskins fan.
Oh, really? Now, why is that?
What?
He's from
Where's he
Texas.
from?
I don't know.
Why is he a Cowboys fan?
Yeah, I don't know. I saw that he was a Redskins fan. So I was
Okay,
like,
so speaking of weird states, I don't know if you guys saw my tweet earlier today, but I have a friend who actually lives in DC now, but grew up in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Did you know that the state of New Hampshire does not penalize adults for not wearing seatbelts?
Oh, really? They're the last holdout, huh?
I did not know that.
Oh, no,
If you're
actually, they
under
don't have
18, the
helmet
rules are
laws
different.
either, right?
If you're
Yeah,
over
yeah.
18, don't have to wear a seatbelt.
Yeah.
Don't have to have car insurance.
Oh,
Yeah,
I do know there's states
but
where
what's
you don't
odd
have
is
to
you
have
have to
car
do an
insurance.
annual inspection on your car, right? I think that's the thing.
well, you got to do that in Texas too. I mean,
I know, but like,
I mean, what a strange thing to be like, oh, live free or die. I'm not
yeah,
wearing my...
but I think what Sarah was saying is like they're so live free or die libertarian about a lot of things, but when it comes to your car inspection, they're kind of tight asses about it.
Well, there's two things, right? The car inspection, some states like Virginia require them every year. Maryland is, once you buy the car, a new car, it's inspected and that's it. So I agree with you on that. There's a lot of states that have it differently. But the insurance part of it, some states do it where if you own a new vehicle or you have a loan on the vehicle, you must carry insurance. Whereas if you have a used vehicle, you don't have to carry insurance.
oh yeah, I feel like that's what Illinois was like when I first bought my car in like 1986. It's probably changed since then, I think.
Yeah, so I'm wondering which one they would be. But I'll be honest, I hate wearing a seatbelt, but I'm a big guy, so a lot of seatbelts until they started really making them where they can adjust up and down on the left, on the wall side of the car. A lot of times my chest would make the seatbelt sit up and it'd be cut me in the face and the ear, my left ear throughout my whole trip. So seatbelts do annoy me, but I'm trying to wear them more.
So you want to be thrown clear of the.
See, I just did not realize that we were having these conversations still. Like, should I wear this uncomfortable seatbelt? It's like, I have to.
Well, you know what's weird
Like,
is
I expect to go to prison for the rest of my life.
my friend is also from New Hampshire, and I remember she works for a company, very well-known company, but she's saying like, yeah, like all our affiliates in the employees in California, they have to be really careful about how many hours they can work because California limits you to 8 hours a day on the clock. And like, yeah, it's just really weird. We got to do all these special things. It's like, why is it special? Like, doesn't everyone have to follow like an 8-hour day rule if you're a non-salaried employee? But I guess that's not true.
Well, it probably depends on the company too, because I think most of the times the companies are, fighting to make sure you don't get 8 hours a day, so then I got to pay you overtime.
Where was Blair Witch filmed? Is that New Hampshire? Because that would explain a lot.
I thought that was Baltimore.
What? Blair Witch?
Yeah, like outside Baltimore.
Really?
Yeah,
in
not.
Maryland? Blair Witch was
Maryland.
in Maryland?
There's a park with a stand of trees. They shot it there.
It's right outside where Wallace went to stay with his aunt and uncle in
No,
the
it
wire.
wasn't.
You guys, no, I'm asking
Black
seriously.
Hills Forest in Maryland.
Oh, look at that.
What?
A group of college students venture into the
See, I
Black
don't
Hills Forest
understand
in
the East
Maryland.
Coast
Wait,
at
are
all.
you suggesting New Hampshire is haunted or something?
I always imagined New Hampshire as a lovely state with a lot of wooded area where the Blair Witch lived.
Where witches live, of course.
I thought that that's where they shot it.
Well, up there, her name is Monica.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Monica Witch.
Monique.
Monique. Well, there's a lot of French Canadians.
Sure, yeah. I don't know. I don't know anything about these states. They seem great though. Maple syrup, skiing.
You can get skiing in other states.
You should wear your seatbelts, but otherwise you seem like good people.
Yeah,
Well,
but like,
some states you don't have to wear motorcycle helmets.
It's a short state. I mean, by
You
the
don't
time
have
you
to
get
in
where you need to go-
Colorado, that's for sure, because I was just there, and like it is jarring how many people on the freeway are not wearing helmets on motorcycles.
Florida.
No, what's jarring is driving up to New England, up from New Jersey, and as you go through the states, you see the level of aggressiveness kind of loosely. I should say pretty closely correlated with the license plate in the state they're from.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
There's particular regional slang for certain from a certain class of driver from a certain state. It starts with an M.
Mass hole.
everywhere, though.
You're talking about mass
That's
hole.
That's
Yes.
everywhere. That's everywhere.
No.
Everywhere's got that.
I literally was. We were driving and it was fine, and then literally out of nowhere, like these cars from Massachusetts,
No, I'm just saying,
like
everywhere has that. Everywhere that's got cross-border plates, right? Illinois, everybody in Missouri thinks the Illinois drivers suck, and vice versa, on that St. Louis border. And I don't think anywhere is an exception to that. Everybody's got their own.
No, I
thing.
don't think we talk about that in California, but that's
Arizona.
because
I hear
California
people
is
complain
so
about
bad.
Arizona drivers in LA all the time.
I don't complain.
I've never heard such a thing.
No.
I have. I totally have.
And the problem is that they're not aggressive enough.
Yeah, Arizona drivers are the worst. They're so slow. They don't know where they're going. Blah 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 blah. I don't know that it's true. I apologize to any Arizonans
Well,
in the
what do you
audience.
want? An autonomous driver? Is that what you want?
In Arizona? Yeah.
I want people not to camp out in the left lane. If you want to do 60 or 50, fine. Move to the far right. Don't stay in the fast in the
What
high.
do
You know,
need? I'm doing the speed limit. If you want to go faster, just go around me.
You're breaking
See,
the
that's
law if you
thing,
go
is
around me.
is like that's actually the right argument,
Oh my gosh, my grandpa used
but
to do
it's
that.
so annoying.
He would drive 55. This is back when the speed limit was 55. He would drive 55 in the left lane because he said, I'm saving the state money repairing the roads because the right lane gets worn down faster.
Oh my goodness.
no. You actually, I think
And
there
he's
was
probably not wrong.
there was a
not, yeah.
study
But
that
very
I think
annoying.
that Michigan did and found that actually having a slower speed does not necessarily make it safer. What you want is the average speed that traffic actually travels at, because people always try to go a little faster. And what happens is you'll have a mismatch of speed.
Yeah,
Say,
mismatch
like,
speed
if-
is very dangerous. You're right.
It's very dangerous, right? Because say the speed limit's set at 55, but people have a natural tendency to cruise at 65 or 75. They're going to be whamming into traffic, suddenly braking, and that's where you start having your traffic flow issues, because now you have this kind of stop and go, things.
Well, the ticket's impeding the flow of traffic, right?
Yeah. So get into the right lane, please, for my sake.
For my sake.
Do it for Roger, not for
do it.
yourselves.
It's not even me having to slow down. I'm happily to cruise. I just don't like driving and then stopping and driving. If I have to go all the way in bumper to bumper traffic at 55, great. Just don't want to go 55, watch it go down to 20, and then to 5, and then stop, sit there for a couple of seconds, and then step on the gas, go back up to 55.
You better not ever move to Maryland. You'll be in trouble. Yeah, the traffic out here is horrible.
I will.
So,
I will
Chris,
invest in
let
a
me ask you
microwave.
this, because this is a thing that I've always wondered.
Mhm.
Do you think that Delaware is real?
I've been to a spot up north on my way to New York called Delaware.
It better be. Sword Lakes is incorporated in Delaware.
That's what
Well,
they said.
sure. LLCs love Delaware. Is it real?
It looks, and when I
I've
go,
never met anybody who grew up in Delaware.
I've never met anybody that's grown up in Delaware, but I
See?
most
I have.
certainly-
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to Rehoboth Beach when I was interning in Washington, D.C., and we stayed in the beach house of a couple who were cousins of a fellow intern, and they were born and raised Delaware.
Damn it.
Wow. Because everybody
I
I
was
talked to
pretty sure I was
on.
onto something.
Pretty
But, like
distant.
Delaware
Actually,
is like
they would have
not-
been lying, Sarah. I've never seen them since.
right.
True.
Right.
Well, and on that note, we will all say farewell and see you mañana. Thank you so much, Chris, for being on the show.
Thank you guys.
Don't forget,
Thank you,
end of week, our
Chris.
special roundtable episode on space.
Space.